careful with this segment today because I have a feeling that it's going to get misinterpreted, and I have an even worse feeling that it'll be my fault that it's misinterpreted. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. From Bradenton, Florida, I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Pitchers and catchers report here to Pirate City in Bradenton. The first formal workout for that group will be at 9:45 a.m. I'll be there to cover that. And I'll be there with a little bit of a different sense for the future, the immediate future of this franchise in right field than I had when you and I last hooked up here. Why is that? Well, here's the part where I might have a difficult time conveying this. I've been told that the baseball team is not done. I've been told that the baseball team still has its move of the offseason in front of it. I've been told that the baseball team remains very much in pursuit of a right fielder, and I've also been told that that's most likely to happen via trade than it is via free agency. Now, you can go over each of those four individual things and say, well, yeah, that all kind of makes sense. But there's a difference between that all kind of makes sense and then describing something that the Pirates are allegedly doing or not doing. Now, the part that I want to make crystal clear here is I'm not making a prediction here. I'm not making a forecast. There's no chance of what I'm sharing with you becoming wrong because it's just what's being discussed in the moment. I really, really, really hate the prediction stuff, and I really, really, really hate whenever I'll report something and it's interpreted as some sort of ironclad forecast of the future. That's not how reporting works. I'm not doing, scalding takes here or something. Sharing with you what it is that I hear within the parameters of hearing it from people who'd be in the know. Now, even people in the know don't always know, meaning they don't know how something's going to turn out or why it might turn out that way. What I know is that the team that you see right now, the roster that you see right now in front of you, they feel that that's not the roster that they're going to take with them to Miami on opening day. This is not something that's being talked about on the inside as if it's, down the road or let's see how things go at the deadline. They see right field as a position of need in the now. And no, I'm not giving them credit for that. And no, I'm not attributing that to some eureka moment for any of them. I'm just letting you know what they say is their intent. We will see if it happens. And when the time comes, we'll see if it happens the one way that you would think would be specifically the most likely, and that would be to trade young pitching. That would be the area where they have, you can call it a surplus. You can. I can say until I'm blue in the face that Paul Skeens fell to them from the sky, but he actually did, and he's actually wearing the uniform. And he takes up a really big number one spot in your rotation. You got Mitch Keller. You got Jared Jones. You're going to have Bubba Chandler at some point, maybe soon, maybe right away. So that puts these other various Thomas Harrington, Braxton Ashcraft types a little bit lower on the depth chart than they might be somewhere else. And they are coveted. I don't mean those players in particular. I mean that category, that asset is the most coveted, actually, in all of baseball. The young pitcher who can actually start. So if you're of the mind, as I am and have been for a while, that Ben Cherington and really everybody else in baseball ops should lose their job if the coming season isn't some sort of resounding success, however that gets defined by anybody, then they, from the purely selfish perspective, have absolutely nothing to gain by hanging on to the Ashcrafts and the Harringtons. It's also why I've been kind of cringing a little bit at the idea, because they can't recognize hitting. So to give up one of these types of young pitchers, you better not miss. You better not get a hitter who misses. You better nail this one for once when it comes to offense. And one other thing before we get to the break, I'm going to keep repeating that I can't conceive of a right fielder who'd come to Pittsburgh, regardless of the scope of the trade, who would be so overwhelming that he would alter the outlook for this lineup as a whole. I don't know that there's a player like that who exists who'd be reasonably available. So this lineup, in my eyes, is still, you're still talking about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at short, and iffy Nick Gonzalez at second, Brian Hayes and his back troubles at third. Spencer Horwitz isn't going to be available right out of spring training because he's got a wrist issue. And then, of course, there's right field. So it's not a one move wave of the magic wand that fixes this. It really isn't. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragechek.org. That's gunstoragechek.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Canyon, who says, "Hey, DK, I got a question for you. What's going to happen when all this just blows up in their faces, when they're out of contention in July and their grand plan didn't work? Are they just going to disappear into the void and still believe that they're right after they wasted 5 years of everyone's time?" Sorry for the loaded question, he says at the end. Well, it's loaded and it requires at least one correction to it. They would not have wasted 5 years of everyone's time, Kenyon. They would have wasted 5.5 at that point. Don't ever let them off the hook for the COVID year. They've attempted that in various forms over the past couple of years, and they really shouldn't get away with it. They were still administrating baseball. They still had prospects. They still could do things, and they still played a 60-game season. This is year 6, and if they don't succeed in year 6, to repeat from the opening segment, to repeat from several months now, they should be fired. They should be gone. They should have been both of those things after this past season. But especially given the way the public has responded to the retention of these individuals, after year 5, you would think that would all be that much more heightened, either within year 6 or after year 6. So if you're looking for a literal answer, Canyon, the first thing I would say is if the team is miles out of it by, June or something like that, the first thing you're going to do is drop the general manager, because you can't have that GM at the switch come the trade deadline. You just can't, because that GM will do anything at that point to preserve his occupation, and you just can't have it. That's how, Chris Archer and Matt Morris trades happen. You have to prevent that. You have to learn from past mistakes. The second thing, and I'm going to imagine that this would already have happened by then, is that you would have made a change at manager. The manager almost always goes way before the GM goes. What's unusual is the current setup where the two of them, both Ben Cherington and Derek Shelton, are tethered together the way they apparently have decided to be. And they've been through this every step of the way, side by side. Even so, there comes a point when the GM just decides he's not going to throw you a life preserver and he'd rather watch you drown than him drown, and there goes the manager. And as to the the general way that you ask the question, the obvious implication is that, you think they're not going to be very good. The math, the projections all support that. The math, the projections, by the way, still support that, even with an upgrade in right field. Although that might be because they would project a modest upgrade in right field, being that these are the Pirates. I happen to share that stance in the moment, while also understanding that the season doesn't begin for another month and a half. I happen to feel that the 2025 season will not go well on the field. You'll have your obvious individual highlights. You'll have your individual highs. But one of the many factors working against them, although it's one that almost nobody ever seems to bring up, is that the Central Division got better around them. Not better theoretically. They got better players. And nobody, at least not right now, stands out in that regard quite like the Cubs. So, yeah, that's the best I can do. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody checking out Daily Shot of Pirates. Again, pitchers and catchers today. I'll be talking to people all day long, and we'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.